before we get started this morning, I'd like to invite you to take a minute to reflect on your life as a whole, maybe life recently. What are the things that are coming up for you? That are the things that feel maybe like you need to solve or that you would like to change. Maybe it's relationships that you aren't able to connect with people in ways that you would like to connect. Maybe it's how you feel in your own body. Maybe you feel uncomfortable or anxious or lethargic, like you just can't find energy to do anything. Maybe it's frustrated. And I'd invite you to hold that and ask you, what are you doing towards that? Are you just seeing it and acknowledging it and then setting it aside? Or are you an active participant in your life? Are you creating the life that you want to create? This whole concept of mental fitness is you can make life the way you would like it to be. I think a lot of times we feel just stuck in place, maybe trapped. No, you're not. There are things that you can do. And I would say reach out. Reach out to friends around you. Talk to people. Reach out to the one-on-ones that we do together. Chances are you probably know somebody that's done some one-on-one work. And you might have seen some real shifts and changes in their life. And if you look at that and see, hey, that's awesome, I'd like to do that too, then reach out and be excited to work with you and figure out what direction you would like to move forward in your life. Because it's short. Sometimes it feels long, like we're stuck in it, but the truth is it's really, really short. And I hope if you take one thing away from today, that you take away the message that there's something you can do. Whatever it is that you look in your life and you're like, man, I wish this wasn't that way, or I wish this could be that way instead of that way. Let's do it. If you need help, you need support, let's do it together. Today's topic is not a topic. We're going to go into 4 different tips for mental fitness. So if you've got 10 or 15 minutes, you can browse through the different tips and find the one that feels right to you. The idea and the message behind this is I'm going to share a sentence, and in that one sentence, I think you'll take everything that you need from it. We'll spend some time unpacking that. About what do we really mean by that, and then my goal is to that maybe these things stick in your head. Maybe you remember. Maybe one of these sayings or thoughts in here pop back into your head in a moment, right when you just need it. I had a professor in school this guy was awesome. I think he was Scottish, really, really old guy. A bit, maybe you would call him out of touch, grumpy, but I loved him, and he was just filled with incredible wisdom. And he said something one day of, I think he was probably teaching to an audience of students and seeing a whole bunch of blank faces, and said sometimes that he's like throwing ice picks in people's brains, basically, and that it sticks in there. And it doesn't do anything right away because it's an ice pick, but then suddenly it melts. And he's like, sometimes it's 10 minutes later, or sometimes it's 10 days later, or maybe it's years later, that suddenly it's like, oh, like that's what that meant. Like, I got it, right? And so my hope is maybe some of these will be ice picks that will stick in your brain, like, oh, what does that mean? I'm not even really sure what that meant. And maybe at some point, if it doesn't thaw right away, that it'll thaw for you later. All right. We'll dive in. As always, if you got questions, this is more of a conversation than it is a lecture, and especially in these shorter formats. So I'd love to engage. If you got questions, you have challenges, you think, nah, that doesn't sound right. Cool. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. So the first is there's a lot of different ways that this is said. There's probably 10 different quotes of different people saying it, but essentially you can have anything you want. You can't have everything. And to me, this is really a reminder of what is most important to you. I think we started out this question in the very beginning about like, what are the things currently going on in your life? Like, how are you spending your time? How are you spending your week? You can do whatever you want with the 24 hours that you have, but you can't do everything with those 24 hours. And so part of this process, maybe this question, this statement inherently points you inwards. What is it that I really want? If I only have 24 hours in a day, what do I do in my day that I look at the end of the day and feel good at? At the end of my month, when I look at my month and see what I've done with my month, do I look back and be like, oh, that was incredible, that was beautiful? Or the end of my year, maybe you're reflecting at the end of the year and you say, oh, I loved the way I spent this year. Like this year was the most powerful year I've had in my life. Or do you look back and be like, oh, yep, another year down, tick one more off. I'm one more step towards death. Or one more year I've endured. I've survived. I survived one more year. Whew, gosh. This question moves back to you of what do you really want? What do you really care about? And are you living that? And if not, why not? And it's a lot deeper question than you would think. And I think actually probably a large percentage of the work that we do is people trying to figure out who they really are, what they really want. Are the thoughts that are in their head about what they should or shouldn't be doing, or the actions, the thing they're doing, their own? Is that I'm doing this because I want to, because this is truly how I want to spend my life? Or am I just on some rat race here where I'm running this race that I don't even really know why I'm running or why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just think it's what I'm supposed to do. It's what I have to. It's what I should do. And those are interesting words. Like supposed to, have to, should. It implies that somebody outside of us is actually the one in control of our life. I hear these words get used a lot. Well, I don't really want to do it, but I have to do it. And zooming out of that, realizing that I am the one that's fully in ownership and control of my life. Is it what I want to do? And there's things that maybe in the moment I don't really want to do the dishes, right? But I want to have a clean house. So I do want to do the dishes because I want my house to be clean. And I think when we make that switch within ourselves, and going back to this idea of you can have anything you want. You can not do the dishes. Like you can party it up all weekend long, eat pizza, pile up the boxes on the counter for the whole week or whatever it is you want, right? You can have anything you want if that's what's most important to you. This is you can have anything you want, but not everything. Or you can get up and you can do the dishes and you can spend your whole weekend cleaning and making sure everything is perfect and just right. If that's what's most important to you. And this question is reflecting back to the things that you do in your life. Are they the things that are really of deepest value to you? And I think this also goes deeper into conflict, into relationships. I think it's easy to see this in maybe a couple fighting, or maybe a child and a parent, or two coworkers fighting. Like, do you want to be right in this debate, in this argument, or do you want to strengthen this relationship? What's most important? And I think a lot of times we just get stuck on this. I'm trying to prove right, and then I prove right and I win the argument, but I lose the relationship. And it's like, what was I really trying to do in proving this here? And so again, it comes back to you can have anything you want. You want to be right, you can be right. But is that what you really want? Underneath almost all conflict, when you start dissecting conflict, it's really about the thing that's being argued. It's about the things that underneath that are really important. Example of getting cut off in traffic. It's not the 3 seconds that I am running, that I'm going to be later. It's going to take me 3 extra seconds because this person cut me off here. It's really about the respect that's underneath, or the disrespect, or the way that I believe people should behave. It's about somebody robbed me. It's about something underneath, and getting to this, you can have anything. It's what is most important to you in that moment, proving to that person by speeding up alongside them and doing whatever to let them know that they can't disrespect you, or you just continuing on with your day. Like, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything. I think in correcting, example up here is correcting the behavior with maybe kids, for those of us that are parents in here. Do we correct the behavior, or do we want to get to the root of what is causing the behavior? Now, what's most important in there? Like to punish them and let them know that this isn't okay, or to dig down deep with them and why is this going on? This isn't you. This seems like different from your normal thing. Like, I'd like to be able to sit down and talk and have an argument about it. I mean, not an argument about it, have a discussion about it, right? This is really about taking radical ownership of our lives. I've got up on there, the average lifespan is 27,375 days. Question is, how do you want to spend yours? Some of us will have more, some of us will have far less. And this first is a reminder to put first things first, and to remind you that you can truly have anything you want in your life. You have to prioritize it. And so it's reflecting back in here to the question of, if you're going to have one thing in your life, what is it? What is that one thing? What is that first thing that should come first to you? And is your life in alignment with that? Okay, there's our first. If there's any thoughts or questions, I can open it up for a moment, then we'll move on to the next.
I got some thoughts on that. I think you're spot on with the most important thing that people don't do, and that is decide what they want next, right?
Right.
And decide what is most important to them, which is really fascinating. It's you can call it manifesting, or some people call it praying or whatever, but they're picking, and it's not really one thing, right? It's a stack of things. So you can't have everything. I think you're right. I think when people are focused and looking at Facebook and seeing other people that have other things that they think they might want because they're nice and new and shiny, they get distracted by that and they start chasing that for a minute, and then they hop over and chase something else for a minute. Well, the act of sitting down and saying, I'm going to commit the next 10 years to gathering up my house, or gathering up my family, or gathering up my career, is incredibly powerful. And I find that you're exactly true. You can have whatever you want. Now it all comes at a cost now.
Right.
And I see most people missing out on what they want. What they want is what other people have, and what they don't want is to have to do the things the other people did to get those things, right? And the sacrifices. And I think there's another interesting one that Dan Sullivan talks about, and that is one of the things that even when people do want it, and they're reasonable people and they're completely capable of getting what they want, they decide not to. They pass on it, and that's normally because I think he says their 6 most important relationships, they're afraid to leave them behind. So sometimes that's called crabs in a bucket. Mm-hmm. So they get this fear without even knowing they're getting it. They get this fear of, well, if I do that, then I might alienate this person. I might not be able to spend the time with this relationship that I have. So I'm just going to blow up what I can easily grab, so that I stay exactly where I am, which I think is also fascinating, because it's the only thing that's impossible, is to stay right where you're at and have nothing change. And I find most people trying to do that, attempting to do that, and there's no way they can do that. So instead of choosing what they want and focusing on it and doing it, they choose to be a ship without a rudder and just let everybody else's pushing, put them wherever they end up, which is a lot of times nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a scary part of choosing and deciding, because then you're responsible for what you have and get.
Yeah, well, there's that too. My fear of failure, right? Well, geez, that's too big of an ask. I can't get that. Well, You probably can if you go ahead and do it, right? If you, I mean, it's amazing what you can get done if you really put your mind to it and are willing to show up and sacrifice something to make it happen.
Right. Right.
The 75 years, I'm trying to extend that dramatically, and
Okay.
it's true that people have from the beginning of time. There's people that live twice as long as the average age, and there's people that live half as long, and that's where the average comes up with, right? That's how you get it. So I think also, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this. I think your mind is so powerful as far as your health and when you're going to die, and that I think the beginning, the best way to live a long, healthy life is to, number one, your mental health, get your mind right, and then that will really help the biological, right? And the opposite is true too. If you've got your mind and it's killing you, you can literally kill yourself just by thinking that you're dying or deciding that you're done, right? You're retiring.
Right. Right.
So bringing that to our people and showing them that, if you have a wonderful life, it's more like heaven on earth rather than hell on earth. Then I believe that for most, it will result in a lot longer, happier life. And I think it also, if you love your job and you love what you're doing as a career, and you've got the freedoms that you want, you'll want to do it longer as well. So you'll live twice as long, and you'll probably work twice because it's fun, right? Because you're doing it right, and you're around cool people that you love being around.
Right. Right. There's something interesting doing this work. I hear a lot of stories about death, essentially. And how much, not to say that there is always, but how many stories I have heard of people choosing the moment that they pass. And I think there is something really powerful about that, and the whole placebo effect, which I'm sure everybody knows and understands of when they test medications, they give people a fake pill that they know does nothing for them, but just taking this helps them cure or move towards it, which is just all about how much our expectations, our beliefs about our own life and our body lead to the realities that are created within our own biology and body.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I've witnessed it ever since I've been thinking about it. And so setting your mind that you're going to live 200 years instead of 75, you'll get a lot closer to 200 than 75. But and that's not the important piece. The important piece is your quality of life and how vibrant you are, and how you show up to every day will be so much better, right? Whereas if you're 55 and you're going to be done at 75, you're like, oh, that's a bummer. It bums you out, right?
Right.
You tell
I
yourself
remember
I lived 150, then that's a whole different deal. I got a lot of time left.
Right. There is some study, I can't remember the details off the top of my head, of that was essentially measuring people's quality of life, health indicators with how much control they believe they have over their life.
Yes. Their freedoms.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's a bit of the, are they just the rudderless ship getting tossed around by the waves and the ocean and the other boats, or are they really in control of their own life? And there's this really interesting thing, and I get to witness this a lot of, we both want control and are terrified of control.
Yeah.
Some of us more on both sides of that. And I think this is part of the what do you really want question that we have in here of like, oh man, like what if I choose wrong? If I actually choose and I have to actually acknowledge that I can have anything that I want, and then I get it and I'm not happy, then the consequences of that are either I don't really know myself, or I don't have anything else to blame or be angry except for towards myself in there. And so there is sometimes a resistance to choose, because what if I make the wrong choice, like that whole thing in there. So it's almost easier to If I don't choose, then somebody else is still to blame, and I
Sure.
can sit back in here. Yeah.
I think there's a powerful antidote to that. And that is what I'm choosing next. Not
Beautiful.
forever, not
Right.
lifetime, it's next. So
Right.
when I'm making these big goals, if I put it on myself that, oh, I'm gonna do nuclear energy and I'm gonna live 200 years and I'm gonna have to do nuclear energy for 200 years, that sounds terrible. No, I don't want to. But if I say I want to innovate nuclear energy and I'm committing to it for 10 years, oh, I can do 10 years. I got that, right? And knowing that as soon as I do it, or even when I get close to having it done and perfecting it, I'm going to want something else, right? Because I like to innovate. So I'm going to get tired of that, and I'm going to pass it to other people and let them take it, and I'm going to go do whatever's next. So that's my inoculation to being terrified and not doing big things. Is I know it's just next. It's not a life sentence. And I
Right.
also have, I allow myself to do 5 or 10 of them at a time. I'm not restricted to one. I have enough bandwidth to run multiple, right?
Yeah.
Because
I think
doing
that's
one, if you said you can only do one thing, Mike, that would be a nightmare for me. But if I can do
right.
multiple. Okay, that's cool. That'll make me happy, right?
Yeah. I think that's great. I often think of it like in the moment, like what in this moment is most important to me. And it's not to say that I can't choose something else in a different moment, a different day, or if you go on energy for 10 years and you get in there and you're like, no, I don't like this. It's like I'm not a prisoner to this. No, it's something that I choose to give myself freedom, because too many choices puts us in paralysis and we don't do anything. So at some point we choose to do something, but the antidote, as you said, is knowing that I can change my mind. I'm not a prisoner to do it. I'm the one that chose this, and I'm the one that can unchoose this also.
That's true. And sometimes I have a bad habit of choosing too many things at once. And then I have to go reassess and say, no, I'm going to give up all my free time and my relationships. If I bit off more than I can chew. Okay, well, just remove the ones that are not the highest priority. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is a call to your life in general. Are you living the life you want in general? And also it's in each specific moment to stop what you're doing in each moment of, is this the outcome that's most important right now? And I think this is in relationships, this is in business, this is in that. Is what I'm moving towards the thing that's most important to me?
Right.
Or is there something else that's of greater value here?
Right. I agree.
Let's move on to number 2. Expectations create reality. This is a bit, I think there might be a theme. I was trying not to have a theme, but I think we ended up with a theme this week anyways. That we control our own reality in our expectations. And we'll dive into this quite a bit, because there's a lot underneath it, and it ends up tying in with some interesting kind of Stoic philosophies as well. If you imagine there's a rainy day, you'd probably choose to do something different. Or maybe if you're deciding to have a picnic, you would bring the rain shelter with you. If you imagine that's going to be a sunny day and you go out and you have a picnic and then it's starting to rain, then suddenly you're caught unaware. You have this expectation that it was going to be a certain way, and then it shifts on you. And that shift is what creates the distress within you, because there's a belief that it wasn't supposed to be this way. It shouldn't be this way. I'll give you another example of like sharing food with somebody. If you have like a bowl of ice cream or a fudge brownie or something like that, and you're eating the whole thing, and someone asks you for a bite, probably, well, it depends. Some people are like, the answer is just no, period. But some people will be like, yeah, sure, you can have a bite, right? But if you get all the way down to your last bite and someone asks you if you can have that last bite, like as the fork is moving towards your mouth, like that becomes painful. Like, oh, right. But in reality, like maybe there's 10 bites of brownie. You gave them 1 and you had 9. You know, if it was the last one and you're expecting to have that one, it's the same ratio still. You had your 9 bites, but it's the expectation that you were gonna have one more in there that suddenly like causes this pain in there. Another example in there, military stuff that is hilarious, both as a trainee in it and as an instructor later on. Like people, instructors usually tend to pick a number, right? It's like when you do disciplinary exercise, it's going to be 15 of this and 10 of that or whatever it is. And you see everybody like doing the last 10 push-ups, and then you hit 10, and then you hear them like keep going to 11, and all of a sudden everybody collapses, and nobody, because they thought it was going to be 10, and then you got to do one more, and it's like, I just can't do it anymore. But if their expectation was that it was going to be 12 or 15, they probably would have been different in there. So it's just this idea of expectations creating the situation in which we are experiencing. And I used the word reality in there, but I said I might say expectations create our own internal experience. It's also the difference between sitting at a coffee shop to go meet a friend or a business meeting, and the person showing up late, versus they called you and said, hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes late. You're like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll sit here and read a book. And I'll enjoy that 15 minutes. And you might even be excited to have 15 minutes for yourself. But if you have this expectation that they're going to be there, then you're sitting there wondering, you're not enjoying it. You're like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And so it's the underlying expectation that is creating the experience that you are having, whether it's anxiety or frustration or hurt. I was involved in a study about like frustration and what made people frustrated or anger. And it was a study about anger. And when we really started diving in and getting into it, it was a lot to do with this. It was a quick 5-minute errand that turned into a 55-minute thing because there was a train and a traffic jam and the store was out of milk and you had to go to 12 different things and you're back 90 minutes later. Versus if someone said, oh man, can you make this 3-hour trip for me? And it only ended up taking you 90 minutes. You'd be excited. In the end, it's the same. You spent 90 minutes in there. And what a lot of this leads you back to is living in the present, not some judgment of the way life should be, the way the weather should be, the way other people should be. And some of the questions I have for you are like, how do you remain in the present moment? Because it's not the present moment that is causing the friction or tension or disruption in you. It's your expectations of the way that you believe things should be. Running to the store should take 5 minutes, so I'm really upset if it takes 20. This is also something I think powerful to consider in relationships. A lot of the friction in relationships comes to unspoken expectations. Oh, I did this thing for you, and then I'm in the situation where I'd like you to, do it for me, and then you don't, and I'm hurt. I always do this thing, and can't you just do it once for me? Why do I always have to be the one to do it? And it's these expectations of I'm doing it, so then therefore you should do it when I'm not doing it. Or I did this for you, now you should do this for me. And there's these unspoken expectations about how other people should be and what we're doing. And so my 2 kind of calls to action for you are speak your unspoken expectations. If you are helping someone move with the expectation that they're going to help you move, then speak that. If you're doing the dishes and you're okay doing the dishes 5 nights a week, but not 7 nights a week, then speak that. If you are doing something with the expectations that someone does something back to you, is this truly a gift? Or is this something you're doing with strings attached, which is essentially I have an expectation with this? And a lot of the conflict I see both the kind of internally and externally is not bringing these things to the surface. And when you find yourself in those moments of this is supposed to take 5 minutes and it's taking 45, or man, I planned this backpacking trip or this camping trip on middle of August, so it'd be sunny and now it's rainy. Like if you planned it in fall when you knew it was going to be rainy, then it would be very different. You would be able to enjoy the rain and enjoy it for what it is, as opposed to being frustrated about what it isn't. And I think that goes with relationships, that goes with ourselves. There's some deep things in here. And I think there's another lesson to be drawn from it of like mental preparedness. If I tell you I'm gonna, do something to scare you just before I do it, it doesn't work anymore. When like you're not gonna feel it, right? So there's something in that of like, when we are mentally prepared for something, if you know something's going to be difficult, hard, heavy, or challenging, and you can prepare yourself for that, then you are able to receive it differently. And it's both, one, it's having the foresight ahead of time to give ourselves this. When I'm working with individuals and we're talking about something and something's gonna be really tough, it's like, say it, this is gonna be really tough. And then it suddenly becomes not so tough because you have this expectation that's going to be there. And so to me, it's like bi-directional here. It's both ends. Like, know that these things are difficult to do. And so prepare yourself kind of mentally for the things that you can. Having a conversation with someone that's going to be awkward and difficult. Say, man, I want to have a conversation, but it's going to be super awkward and difficult. And then we're like, okay, great, I'm ready, let's do it. And then suddenly it's not so awkward or difficult. You're able to just move through it. And so sometimes it's just speaking these things to each other, with each other, that is powerful. And I think it's an internal thing here as well. And preparing us, and then when we are caught with expectations, when we are in the rain, when we expected sun, metaphorically or physically, to allow ourselves to be just in the present moment and enjoy it for what it is, not for what it isn't. And I think this is really powerful for relationships as well. We put our expectations on others about the way we would do it, what I would do or say, not this other person. And we have expectations of what this role, whether boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or spouse or parent or child, like what it should be. But maybe they don't have that same concept of what this role is or what this person is. And it goes back to a little bit what Mike's saying, and also giving them the freedom that just because I always do XYZ thing doesn't mean I have to. Like, each person has their choice and free will at each moment. Because I'm gonna be here doesn't mean I'm gonna always be in that. And so acknowledging each person's free will to be them own selves in each own moment, and to just be in the present with them as they are, and with ourselves as we are as well. I think there's also the, oh man, I got up to get all this work done today and I just can't seem to get it done, and I'm frustrated and I'm mad and I can't focus. And that frustrating and mad and getting focus is keeping me from is depleting my energy more and keeping me from being able to focus, because I'm focusing on how I can't focus as opposed to just letting it go. Okay, that's where I'm at right now. This is what I wanted to do. This was my expectation of what I wanted to do today. And this is the reality of what it is. All right, what do I want to do with that? How do I enjoy splashing in puddles in the rain on my picnic instead of cursing the sun about where it went? Now, and some of the steps of it's literally take a step back, right? When we find ourselves in that kind of frustrated, tense moment, we're disappointed, let down, frustrated, not happy, content with where things are, with where life is, where with other people's are. Take a step back, and how do we release ourselves, others, or the world from our expectations of the ways things should be? And where did I get this concept of way it should be? I tell the sun how it should be, when it should come out, when it should not come. Did the sun not know that we were having a picnic today? What the hell? Like, right? And underneath almost all emotion that we experience is some sort of judgment. Someone says something rude to me. Oh, I'm so offended. I can't believe it. Did you hear him say that? That is just ridiculous. And I'm not this way, or whatever it is. Like, and I'm really offended and upset and hurt. Okay, what's under that? I have an expectation that other people shouldn't say things that I feel are mean. Everyone should say things that I agree with and not. That the way I think of polite behavior is the way that everybody should be. Do I think that this person shouldn't be allowed to have their own opinion about my hair, my face, the way I talk, or whatever it is? Like, is that really what I think? Because that's what's underneath it. If I'm hurt and upset about the way someone else is thinking, it's because I have an expectation about the way they should be thinking, what they should feel. And this is our expectations create our reality. This is the judgment that's underneath all the things of the way I should or shouldn't be treated, or what people should do, or what life should be. And I might offer to take a step back and analyze that. Is that true? Is that reflective of reality? Is that the way I even want it? I wouldn't want to live in a world where people couldn't have a differing opinion of me and be free to express that, because I want to be free to express my opinion. And maybe my opinion is doesn't feel good to other people. Okay. And this is about bringing expectations to the surface, speaking them to yourselves and to others. And I think the underlying message in here is like you are holding the key to your own happiness or your own experience. Like your suffering isn't a result of the world, the suffering is the result of your expectations of the world. If you have the expectation that other people are free to think whatever they want to think and say and speak, and that's okay, then I probably will be less offended. Might still be hurt. Okay, but I can be coming at it from a different place. And also, I would say this: like, are you stuck in a cycle? I see this a lot in interpersonal relationships. Like, you continually expect someone to be something that they're not. Someone that you know is late every time to every meeting, and yet you still get frustrated every time at every meeting that they're 5 minutes late, or whatever it happens to be. Like, how do you accept what is? It's a bit of, okay, if you can change something, great, change something. Maybe it's you tell the person the meeting's 5 minutes earlier than what it is, right? Instead of being frustrated for what they are. I don't like that example too much, but but it could work possibly. Yeah, this is about challenging our assumptions and our expectations of the way we should be. I gave the example in ourselves of like, I should be getting more done today. I should be whatever, more patient, more whatever it is for you. Be like, well, where do I get that belief? I have a desire to. Okay, great. I have a desire to get more done today, but there's something within my body that is telling me that it's not ready for that. Okay, this is like the sun not coming out today. All right, the sun didn't come out today. It's raining. All right, kids, go get your rain boots. We're gonna go jump in the mud instead. Like, that's a bit of our message in here. Your reality or your experience is created from your expectations of the way you believe things should or shouldn't be. And when you are able to alter, challenge, accept those things, you are able to alter your own experience of life in each given moment. Cool. There's number 2. Thoughts, questions, anything else?
Travis, I got to jump in really quick because I swear you just talked about the last 2 weeks of my life.
All right.
So
great.
you're going to the grocery store and you expect to take 5 minutes, and you're there for how long? You bring your kids and you're frustrated. By the time you get home, you're pissed off. And, I mean, that's how it's been, every day. It's like a ripple effect at the end of the day. And all the frustration from expecting to get these 5 things on my list, and then you get 10 because your kids came and they threw stuff in your, basket that you obviously didn't need or want.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's I'm trying to figure out how to get through that day to day. Do I expect to be there for a half hour, it sounds like, or, like to
Mm.
your point about telling them, the expectation at night is going to bed at 8 o'clock. That's my expectation. And then they don't. And then I'm frustrated. And it's summer, right? So why do they have to? So I've let that kind of go and be like, if you don't go to bed at 8 o'clock, you're going to be tired in the morning.
Mm,
But everything that you mentioned, that's how it's been for the past 2 weeks. And I think that's how it is for a lot of people right now. Just,
mm,
you expect this, or my summer should be vacation, but I'm here working, or I'm doing, your expectation is not, summer shouldn't be just vacation. It's, how do I balance my day to day and my kids going to camp, and then at night I can spend time with them and we're not all completely exhausted, or, you know,
mhm.
just, yeah, everything that was mentioned was the past couple weeks of my life. So,
Right. I hear a bit of both our first two topics that we hit so far in there, of like first things first, or what is most important to you in each moment, with the kids and all those things in there. Of, is it them getting to bed, or is it something deeper going on in there? And the expectation that you set for yourself about how long things should take and how many things you should get done, and you had 10 things to get done and you got 5 of them done. um, I
mm,
think there could be work about, part of it is the cycle, right? Of like, hey, I always set myself 10 things to get done and I only ever get 3 done, and I'm always disappointed at myself every day. Part of the changing the cycle could be like, all right, I'm going to get 1 thing done today. And if I get 3 done today, then hell yeah, like bonus, right?
yeah.
That could be part of it. That could be an expectation. And it could be, what's my most important thing to get done today? Like, what's the one thing that I care about most? Maybe it's none of these getting things done. It's, man, if I had a good day with my kids, like, I don't even think I would care if I got these errands done or not. Like, if we had a real moment of bonding in there, and maybe it's not, it could be that. And you're like, that's actually the most important thing to me. And I think this is part of going back to our first thing of like, you can have anything you want, but not everything. And this is not that you can pick one thing, but I want almost to say, like, put it in priority. Like, it's not, there's 10 things that I have to get done, but if I only get one thing done, this is the one. And if I get 2
Mhm.
things, these would be the 2 things. If I get 3 things, these would be the 3 things. And then however you land for the day, you get to celebrate. Hey, I got the one most important thing done to me. Awesome. Great day. I got 4 really good, important things done today. Awesome. Great day. I think that's a bit of putting first things first, finding the things that are most important to you. And I also would ask probably the question of like, what is the deep thing underlying the things? Why 8 o'clock? Why this? Like, is that, and I hear you questioning that, and I hear you asking that, is
Mhm.
that truly important? Sometimes the answer is yes, it is truly important. Okay, great. Now I know like what's first and what's truly important, and other things of like, oh, I can let go of that.
Yeah. And then social media. So the expectations on social media, and
Yeah,
I've
right.
stopped. The best thing I did is I took the advice from Mike and I stopped watching the news, that
Mm,
CNN, the news stuff.
right.
And some people are like, do you know what's going on? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Mm,
Maybe I should know some things, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's helped me. And I think my next step will be social media, because I'm to a point where you're looking at everything and you're like, oh, vacations, right? I need to go on vacation. Well, do I? Like,
mm,
what, you know, but what's a vacation? Or can I just go home and hang out with my kids and I feel that same feeling as when you're on a vacation? Or what is a vacation? Or, you're just kind of going back and forth on looking at everything and on social media. And it's crazy. And then the kids being exposed to it, and it just, you know, I think that's my next step, is just putting that phone down and leaving it. And if somebody calls me at night, I'll get to them in the morning, I guess, or, you know, just not looking at that kind of stuff too. So
Stacy,
I hear
you
you.
notice that when you cut yourself off of TV, and you'll have the same effect with social media. Those things that you do need to know, somebody will tell you. They're going to text you.
yeah,
It comes to you anyway without you even obsessively watching for it. You still get the stuff you need, and then you can open up the news or Google it or get on social media and look at the one thing in the last 2 weeks that you actually needed to see. Right?
yeah.
Fascinating. It works.
hmm
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of the best things. And then the other thing I obsess over is weather. And I don't know why, because I don't really care if it rains or not, but I'm always looking at the weather. Because, right, we wake up in the morning and we're like, do we need to wear shorts or pants? Or, you know, so you're already making these crazy expectations, right? Of, okay, it's going to be sunny today. And then, you know, it's crazy.
I heard you earlier asking on the vacation, like, do I want to go on a vacation because I want to go on a vacation, or am I going on a vacation because I feel like I should be going on a vacation?
Right.
Yeah. And that's what it came down to. I
Right.
felt like I should be because of what I was seeing and everybody talking. But, you know, you get to it and you're like, well, don't need it, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And how many other people are doing that thing because they see other people doing that thing, and then pretty soon everybody's doing the thing, but nobody even really knows why. Okay, we can move on to number 3. Take care of your feet. I think everybody learns in the military pretty quick. You got to take care of your feet. If you don't, it'll pull you aside. And I'm going to use this as a deeper metaphor for taking care of your feet in life. Maybe it's literally taking care of your feet, or maybe it's more tending to the small things that your body and mind is telling you. Kind of the way it goes if you're hiking or backpacking or anything like that, you start to feel this annoying little spot on your foot, but you're only a quarter mile on the trail, and you can still see the car there, and you've got to get to the thing on the time, and you want to get there, so you ignore it and you press on. And then that little thing on your foot starts to turn into a hot spot, but it's because we're moving slow, we got to keep going, and you keep going, and then that little thing turns into a blister, and then the blister, you can't stop and slow down because now it's making you move slower, so you have to patch it up real quick and then keep going, and then that blister gets infected, and then pretty soon your foot is a giant bloody mess, and then it gets your attention, and then it makes you stop. And I'm using this as a metaphor to listen to your body. The little things it tells you, the stomach ache that you've been ignoring, the thoughts or feelings that you have that you just put away. Maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's depression, maybe it's frustration, maybe it's a deep longing for something that you don't have in life. Maybe it's a feeling of something isn't right and I need to change. It doesn't mean you need to listen to it right away and act on it, but I am saying take note on it. Pay attention, be aware of it. Because if you don't, it will show up in one form or another. Just like if you don't stop and pay attention to the hot spot on your foot, it'll eventually pull you over to the side of the road and get your attention. And little things in our body happen like that. I work with a lot of people who are struggling with long-term disease, and almost everything yeah, I knew kind of something wasn't right and off, and it's been a while, and but I was just kind of putting it off, and then suddenly here it is, and now it's taking over, and I don't have a choice but to ignore it anymore. Maybe this is suppressed emotion, a longing of the heart. I think most of the time our go-to is to numb or distract. I think it's probably alcohol or maybe scrolling on your phone or social media or movies or TV or games or whatever it is that we use as the thing to numb and distract us from our life. Could be your physical body. It could be your mental, emotional, spiritual self and body. And this is a reminder to pay attention to those things because they're important. And I don't know anybody that gets to the other end where things have broken and the wheels have come off and they're like, well, I'm sure glad I saved that time that I was too busy at wherever I was to do there and didn't, because it ends up costing us so much more in the long run. And I think it's clear in business, right? Fix the small problems before they become big problems. Like it's worth spending the time and investing in it. And I'm saying on a very practical level and on a really deep spiritual, emotional level as well. I wrote down, if you can't face the stink of your own feet, something's wrong. And I think that is the truth of it, right? Like we pull off our boots and it's like, oh man, those feet stink. Like, give me something to distract myself. Like we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with the stink inside of ourselves or whatever it is, the rot of emotion or the depth of depression, because we're not living the life we want to live, or our relationships are shallow and empty, or we're in a job or a style of life that we hate, that we just found ourselves running, like Stacy's great vacation example, rushing to do all these things. And I'm like, why am I even, I'm on vacation and I'm like, I'm not even enjoying this. Why am I even doing this, right? And this is a call to pay attention to those things. I put up on the title, and maybe this is the thing that will stick as well, is dis-ease leads to disease. And almost always we can get a little bit deeper. I think in our mind-body connection, we talked a lot about this, that almost all of the physiological, biological things that happen in our body started as some sort of energetic pattern, some emotional pattern in there. There's usually always some sort of tie into there. You can see it. I don't know, like a car, like someone whose brakes are always wearing out too fast, like on their car. Like, might have something to do with their not stopping until three seconds before and slamming the brakes every time. They're riding their brakes too hard, right? And our body, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's essentially kind of the same thing about how like the internal stuff within us, how it comes out externally in our body. And so this is a reminder to take care of your feet. And especially when they stink so bad that you can't stand the smell of them, to really dive in there, to really love yourself, care for yourself, treat yourself as someone that is worth being treated well. You have that car that you don't care about, you drive it into the ground, right? But you have that car or that thing that you love, like, oh man, I know it says 3,000 miles, but 1,500, I change that oil, right? And every time those car tires start looking bald, they change it, whatever it is that you do to baby and love the thing. Like, how do you do that to yourself? Because as Mike said, you want to live. And I think that is a question, right? Like, and I think that what Mike was talking about, like, is life heaven on earth or is life hell on earth? And that probably has something to do with how long you want to live. And if life is hell on earth and I'm just trying to survive, you're kind of like that car that you're running into the ground, just hoping it survives long enough to get you to wherever you're trying to go. And I would take the moment to sit with it and offer up that, as Mike said, it is actually your choice. You can choose to create it. And I think a lot of times we might feel stuck on this car or this hell on earth or whatever it is, and to know that you can switch and you can change and you can move. And it starts by paying attention to yourself, paying attention to your body, facing the things that you don't want to face, not just numbing, ignoring, or distracting, but taking the time. And sometimes it's not just, sometimes it's deep things that we are struggling to face. And sometimes it's just letting the busy life get in the way of taking care of yourself. And this is a reminder to find the time and take the time out, like in the hike, we all learned in the military, man, the hot spots come, stop now. As soon as my awareness is like, oh man, I'm getting a hot spot, boom. Maybe it's not this second, but it's going to be in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something, right? And I'm going to get down there. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to wrap this thing up, and then I'm going to get it up, and I'm going to take care of my feet, and then my feet are going to take care of me. And I would say the same thing with you in your life, to find the way, find the time to do the things that are important, because otherwise they'll find the time. Those things in your life will find a way to let you know how important they are, which usually leaves you stranded on the side of the road. There was an interesting, somewhat related here, study in firefighters, and they looked at like firefighter accidents and these huge like tragedies that happened, and almost always someone saw something, knew something, like someone had this feeling that something was wrong. And I bring that in here because almost everyone that I have talked to that is struggling with some major illness or something in their life, almost always they knew, I kind of knew something was off the last few years. I kind of knew. And so I'm putting this out there to listen to your own intuition, wisdom in your body, because it's smart. It's trying to tell you something. And it's in it and you, which is what we're really talking about, are worth taking the time. Okay, it's number 3. Short and sweet on that one.
Travis, I gotta jump in on this one.
Okay.
One of the things that really has become apparent to me over the last year or so is there is an order to things. I mean, as simple as that sounds, it's such a profound issue because, if you go on the hike and then take care of your feet, it's entirely different than taking care of your feet and then going on the hike. And what happens is we tend to look at things from a binary standpoint. Did I check my feet? Is where many of us go. Did I take the time? Did I get the nap? Did I go to bed at 8? Did I do these things? But they're not binary. They're sequential. And I think it's important because a lot of times, but I did that. Yeah, but you didn't do that at the right time. And you didn't do that with the right intent and the right purpose. And I don't know. It just really struck me because I think a lot of us will look at taking care of the feet. Yeah, eventually. But it's not eventually. It's, that. And we were talking about, life extension. Mike brought that up. Doubling your life is important, but also have a life worth doubling is even more important. There's a lot of us, out there, sadly, who, doubling their life would be tragic and sad. It's a life doubled that is exciting. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? I'll even take myself out of the photo here, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, great. Thank you. What I heard deeply in there is doing the actions versus actually taking care of your feet. And what I heard is like, and the question is, are my feet now taken care of versus, well, I did XYZ things, so they should now be taken care of, versus actually doing the things that are important. And then did I achieve, are they taken care of? Did I achieve the thing that was important, or did I just do some actions so I could check the box so I can label it as taken care of?
Yes.
Right.
I
Thank
think
you for
an
bringing that.
important piece in there that you hit on, Travis, is you're the only one that knows whether you've got a hot spot in your feet, right?
Right.
And so other people can say, hey, did you check, think about, this, like just what you do, right? And then, but that person has to notice it and stop and tend to it, or ask somebody to tend to it. There's plenty of help out there once you want to change something. Endless help, probably. Now, but you're the only one that can decide that you want to change it. And I think to Paul's point too on doubling your life, that's not for everybody, right? If somebody hates their life, they don't want to. As a matter of fact, they might want to shorten that, right? And that's okay. There's no judgment on that. You wish it would be different for them, but the quality of it, which you're 100% responsible for, was my point, right? You get to choose it, and it's amazing to me how many people don't choose it. Back to the earlier subject, but they don't, either they don't know it, or they just decide they don't want to do the work to have a beautiful life.
Mhm. I think a lot of times it's not seeing it as possible.
Not seeing it as
Um,
possible, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I think,
yeah.
I think when
And for
people,
some people, it's not possible, right? I mean, there are conditions people are born into where it's not possible. Most of the people I know, it's possible. They have the resources they were born into the right conditions. But I mean, it is definitely true that some people aren't born or aren't raised in the right conditions or just can't get there.
Hmm.
I don't think that's
yeah, I think we're really talking about like the quality of life, right? Like what
quality.
quality of life.
That's the only thing that's important. It's not quantity, it's quality, to Paul's point.
Right. And I think everyone, like we talked about Viktor Frankl and his,
Mhm.
you could say he didn't have the external trappings of the quality of life in that moment. In that time, he was
Yeah, he
in
was
the
in the
Holocaust.
concentration camp
Right.
for what, 4 years. That's the worst.
Yeah. And
Worst.
yet he found and experienced the quality of life that was worth living and that was worth continuing on. And I
Yes.
think that was part of the message of the exterior things versus the interior things. And I think having positive exterior things that can make a quality of life easier. And I think that is true. But it's not necessarily true. I know lots of people that have exterior beautiful quality of life, but their internal quality of life is not it. And you can be in a exterior quality of life that is the worst it can get and still have a quality of life internally that's wonderful and powerful and beautiful.
Well, I think that's profound, that the only thing that matters and the only thing that's valuable is your internal, your mind, and soul. That the trappings that we surround ourselves with are not what makes you happy and joyous. It's what you decide. If you and and sometimes the trappings follow it. But Viktor Frankl, sitting in a concentration camp, having his family incinerated, found something to live for and a joy in the worst conditions of any being ever. And there's others, Mother Teresa was in horrible conditions, and I think she had a wonderful life. It looked like it.
Right. Yeah, I think some of that to me rings back to the expectations create reality again of it shouldn't be this way. Like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe it shouldn't, and it is.
Yes.
And now I'm here. I'm in the picnic and it's pouring rain and my sandwiches are ruined. Now what?
Yeah.
Do I allow that to control? Do I allow the exterior to control me? And I'm throwing down my sandwiches and packing my car and I'm mad and I'm going to go home and sulk and pout? Or do I laugh and we turn our sandwiches into nasty things and we start a food fight and we go roll in the mud and play and have a blast?
Absolutely. That is a beautiful analogy, right? It's a choice. You're choosing it.
We'll dive into our last one. And you're growing or you're dying. And there's a lot of depth to this one, and I'm going to do my best to bring this really broad, big, powerful topic to something that's simple and graspable. But no, it is big and it is deep, and we could have probably a 90-minute conversation just on this. I think, I don't know how we did this week. We didn't plan a theme and we didn't prepare anything, but Mike, you ended up talking about this earlier, that like the only change is, the only constant is change here, basically. And that's essentially what I'm bringing in here. And that we will be constantly changing, and then we're growing or we're dying. We're either becoming stronger by the things that happen, or we are retreating and withering by the things that happen. Back to our rainy picnic, right? Like it's either I'm embracing the rain and I'm becoming a bigger person that can have everything go wrong and still choose to enjoy myself and not let it affect my internal, or I'm retreating into myself of like, man, everything always goes wrong and this sucks and I did this and I did all these things, and I retreat internally and I become smaller. And this is bit like every experience we have in life, we are going to expand from or retract from. And I think some events in life are so powerful that they fundamentally alter the way we see the world. Some people might call this trauma. I might just call it powerful events that fundamentally alter the way we see the world. And it could be in a powerful and beautiful way, and I might give some examples of that, or it can be in a destructive way. And there's usually a few different reactions to that. Let me give a non-heavy example first. I ran into somebody that had an experience of someone that they met at a conference that I don't know what your beliefs are on it, and I'm not saying anything what that was true or not, but I'm going to say that this was this person's experience of the event. And so a person ran into a person that was some sort of person that had extraordinary abilities or gifts, or at least claims that they have extraordinary abilities or gifts, and they shared something, a message from a loved one that had passed that shook them. They're like, nobody would be able to know this. I don't know this person. This is a stranger. And they ended up sitting down and having like a 90-minute conversation that to this person was irrefutably genuine and authentic about something that they couldn't have known. And it shook this person. Like, and when I say it shook them, it fundamentally altered the way that she saw the world. Like, she's like, if this is true, which all my experience of this moment in here says this is true, then it means all of these other things I have to see in a different way now. I have to alter the way I experience them. And this was a positive event. This was a positive example. But then you're left in two places, really. It's either I let this experience that it just happened change the way I see the entire world, which is scary, which is powerful and intense, or I like fragment and I'm like, well, I can't say that this wasn't true, because I think it was, but I'm still going to hold on to this stuff over here. And like we put up this wall, this internal wall between us. And I might say like we start to fragment ourselves in here. So I can still hold these beliefs over here and maybe just kind of put this one in a closet because I'm not really sure what to do with that right now. And I think we can relate this to this is a bit of a positive experience, but you can see and I think the word, like, I actually think the word, like, this was a traumatic experience for her. Even though it was a positive, beautiful thing, it was still caused a rupture within her own identity and self. It caused a rupture to her, the way that she sees the world. And many of us also then have experiences that are so powerful as well that they have the opposite effect on us, that maybe we thought the world was good, we thought people were good, and after this experience it completely changes our view of people in the world, and we no longer trust our other people or ourselves or events that happen. I see it as like a ship. Like if you're on a boat in the ocean, right, and like you strike something in there and the hull gets ruptured, you either allow it to flood the whole ship or you seal off that area to contain it, and you lose that part of the ship, but you've saved the rest of it. And I think that's a bit of what happens to us in life as we have these experiences, we have things, and we start to compartmentalize ourselves or fragment ourselves in order to preserve our view or identity of the world. And I think part of this, I might say healing or personal growth or mental fitness, is going back and reclaiming these parts of ourselves. And it's super interesting as I've seen memories come to people of things that they haven't had before, and experiences and parts of themselves. And it is a like regathering of yourself. And sometimes it's like, I don't know how to hold these two things in the same boat together, but we're going to be in the same boat together and live together and allow it to experience. And I view it as expanding the container. Maybe it's an event that you go, so some new challenge. I don't know, whatever it is for you in your life. Maybe it's speaking, or maybe it's a relationship thing, or maybe it's some job challenge, or something that you don't feel equipped to do and handle. And I might say, currently you aren't equipped to do and handle, right? But then you go through the thing and it expands you. You grow into it. You grow into the type of person that is equipped and able to handle whatever this is. And that is my analogy in there. Like, these things that happen within us, we can silo off and push off, or we can expand the container to be able to hold both, to be able to hold that truth. And I think sometimes, maybe especially in kids, but I think a lot as adults too, like we see oh man, I thought this thing was so hard, but then I look back and I was like, oh, it's easy. Like, it's like, no, it didn't get easier. Like, you grew, like your container expanded to become larger. And I think my message in this is that when you come across challenge, you can retreat away, or you can see it as an opportunity to grow. So when you find yourself frustrated and angry and overwhelmed, or whatever it is, to embrace it, to look at it as the thing that it is that it is the thing that will be the catalyst that allows you to expand and grow. And it is this weird process. Like, it's allowing discomfort within us. I think that's part of the numb and push away and the stinky feet, right? It's like, all right, pull off the boots. Let's sit. We're going to sit in the room with the stinky feet, and then as we work with them and we take care of them, and as we love them, we move them, we heal them, we figure it out, and we realize, like, it's not so stinky, and maybe it is, and maybe it's challenging, maybe it is hard, but we learn to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. To be able to face things, I think, is at the heart of a lot of what mental fitness is. There's a beautiful quote that I probably brought it before. The measure of a man is how much truth he can face. I don't remember who said it, but that's what it is. And I think that is the fragmenting of, like, well, I don't know what to do with that, so I'm just going to discount that thing that just happened over here so I can keep believing and being the way that I am, or then I go back forth. And I think that's like this fundamental fragmenting is actually what's at the health, what's at the heart of mental wellness, or mental fitness, or mental unwellness and mental unfitness, is and at its heart is the ability to contain. Can I hold two things: that the world is both beautiful and full of good people and hope and love, and that the world is not always kind and destructive and all this. And I think we have such a desire for it to pick one. Like, and I think I see this in we talked about it in language, like but versus and. It's like, yeah, all those things, but this is what it really is. And there's such a strong desire in for us to make sense of the world, like to make it fit in our container, as opposed to expand our container to fit it. Right? It is all those things. And it's those things over there too. And I think when you are experiencing that inner turmoil, my guidance is to allow the things that come up to come up. Whatever it is that you feel or think, Allow it to come up. It's the hot spot. It's the, no, my foot's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm just going to ignore it. No, it's a hot spot. That's what it is. You can ignore it. This is back to, you can have, how did I say it? You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything, right? You can, right here in this moment, like, I can ignore it. Right. That's true. I can have that. I can have this, but I can't have everything that I want. And so I can choose right now. I can choose. I want it better, and I want to keep moving. Right. And now here's our expectations and reality again here. Like, well, you can't. You get to pick what's most important to you. Okay. And to allow those things to come up without feeling the need to push them aside, to numb or distract, and to be able to see them as a potential for growth. Maybe even you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to overcome this, or I don't know how this is going to destroy me, but I'm just going to believe that I won't, and that eventually, maybe not today or tomorrow or next year, sometime I will make through. And to experience friction as an opportunity to grow, to expand, and to overcome. It's literally the inside of the stuff pushing on the container, and the friction is the heat and the pushing and the expanding of the container. And there becomes this way of living and being, just as Viktor Frankl showed us that there's a way of living and being with internal joy regardless of your external circumstances. I think there's a way of living and being of actually seeing joy in the friction. Of like, oh man, I'm growing right now. It's super uncomfortable, really sucks. Probably prefer not to be here if I had my choice. And, okay, this is it. This is my opportunity to expand and grow. To become comfortable or even excited about the things that make you feel uncomfortable. I think people in our fitness, in the gym, they get to know that. They see like the pain of working out equals the results I want. And then sometimes they actually start chasing the pain because they feel like if they didn't feel that level of exhaustion or pain, then they didn't get all the gains that they could have got out of it. It's not actually fully true. Sometimes we start chasing the wrong thing in that, but I think the analogy is the same way that the fitness enthusiasts can start actually looking forward to the soreness and everything else because they know what it's going to be in the end. We can adopt the same way of life. And I think I've talked before about the truth, and like a lot of the deep philosophies and religions around the world are like about being able to hold like two truths. That the world is beautiful, and that life is beautiful, and death exists. And death is part of life, and actually death is part of what makes life beautiful. And then we're getting into yin and yang, and that you actually can't have life without death. Because if there were no such thing as death, then they would just exist. And we don't value the plastic flowers that are there for an eternity sitting in the dumpster. We value the ones that bloom only once a year, or the sunrise. Nobody gets up at noon to go stare at the sun, but people get up at sunrise to watch the sunrise because it only happens for a moment. It is this contrast of like beauty, of friction and tension, of hot and cold, of these things that is like where the joy of life comes from. And to be able to hold that in the moment, when you feel the friction and the expansion, to be able to know that it is beautiful and it is part of life, and to be uncomfortable is to be uncomfortable. And I would bring back our mental preparedness. And when you know that, it changes. Like when we said, this conversation is going to be super awkward. I get it. Like, then it becomes less awkward. Like, all right, yep, this thing's going to be super uncomfortable. I'm not going to like having to do this thing. It makes you less. It makes it all the more be able to embrace it. And to hold yourself together as one. I talked about the fragmenting, or just kind of touched on that too, to be able to know that you can hold two truths within yourself. You can both be frustrated and not like your kids in the moment, and really love your kids. And those two things can exist. And it's not like we have to push one away and not the other and be like, yeah, those both exist within me, and that's okay. You can expand the container to hold the two. You can be both uncomfortable and comfortable. You can be both scared and excited. You can be both, to me, like, I think we get confused sometimes that like courage is the absence of fear. Like, oh, I'm not courageous because I'm afraid. And I would say, like, to expand this container, I would say actually courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward in the presence of fear. If fear didn't exist, it wouldn't take courage to move past it. The courage is able to exist because the fear is there. And to expand the container to be able to hold both. Yeah, right. I'm super afraid. And I'm going to move forward anyways. That's the beauty of holding on to this, to allow ourselves to be without judgment. And I don't remember how I said it in the beginning, to grow through difficult circumstances. Okay, that's what I got for today.